Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Sober Yoga Girl podcast. I'm really excited to be sitting with Jade Lee here today. And I've known Jade for a while. She is a yoga teacher. She's also alcohol free. And what I remember about you, Jade, is that you joined one of my sober challenges, but at the same time, you were like traveling around the world, like you were doing a world trip. And so you would check in and you would be in all these different places. And it was just so interesting and really cool. So I know you're a really adventurous person, and I'm so excited to have you here today and learn more about your story and your sober journey.
Thanks, Alex. Yes, I was. I actually was on that trip. I was probably only 3 months sober when I decided that I would go and take a 4-month overseas holiday, which is not really generally the smart idea, I guess. But I just thought, if you do that, you're going to get through the first 12 months and you're going to have done pretty much everything. So I thought, yep. And the things just aligned so that, I had some time off. I came into some money and it was just like, yeah, this is the time to do it. And yeah, so I took it as a challenge. So, did things like go on cruises with where I previously would have picked the biggest alcohol package deal. And I tried to do a cruise alcohol. Well, I did a cruise alcohol-free, tick. Airports, alcohol-free, tick. Flights, tick. Hotels, even staying in hotels, we always used to have drinks. And there was so many things about traveling that I had associated with drinking. So, now I don't even associate drinking with airports at all, because I've done so many of them without alcohol now. So creating all those new neural pathways.
That's really cool. I think that's really inspiring. And I know for me, that was a huge barrier in my sober journey. Like I was really afraid of the sober travel experience. So I think it's really inspiring for those that are going on the alcohol-free journey just to hear about it.
Yeah, it is scary. And and there's reasons for it, because for most people, or for most people who I know, that holidays, relaxation, looking at beautiful views all involved alcohol. And so it was nice to be able to tick that off. But it's not for the faint-hearted, let's put it that way.
Yeah. So I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about your sober journey, like maybe what was your life before you went alcohol-free? What led you to go alcohol-free? And just tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah. So I was let's say I was a corporate executive. I was worked in human resources. I was very dedicated to work, very dedicated to putting in many hours at work, and I would say work hard, play hard kind of culture. So, and that was perfectly normal. Like that was, you would say at the end of the day, oh my God, I can't wait to get home to have a drink. And that was exactly what everybody did. So, obviously, it was a progression to the point that I got to, but, we have all these rules. So it was early on, it was, I don't drink at home. I don't drink by myself. But then I live by myself. And so then I changed that rule. And then it was, certain days of the week you don't drink, all of that kind of stuff. And in the end, without even realizing it, I got to the point that I was relying on alcohol, and I didn't actually realize it for a very long time. And once I realized it, I don't even know really what it was that actually was a tipping point for me to realize it was a problem. But I remember getting hold of or hearing about Annie Grace's book, This Naked Mind. And that really spoke to me, and I thought, okay, I'm going to give this a go. But as I was reading it, I remember thinking, I don't think I could go a week without alcohol. Like I remember at that point, I'd got to the point where I really didn't think that I could go a week without alcohol. And that was actually quite scary. It was a realization that I hadn't had before. And that in itself was like, okay, well, maybe you need to try and do this. So, and I remember I was sitting in a restaurant on the Gold Coast, which is not about an hour's drive from my place here in Brisbane. And I was on holidays. It was a public holiday. I had like 5 days off, and I went to order a drink, and I ordered a ginger beer, like alcohol-free ginger beer. And I still remember this, and I think I will always remember that. That was the point at which I actually ordered a non-alcoholic drink on a holiday. And it was just like, why are you doing this? And that was kind of like, yep, that's it. That's the start. And from there, I did 120 days alcohol-free, which wasn't the intention. It was kind of the 30-day do the alcohol experiment that Annie Grace talks about. And I lost quite a bit of weight, and lots of things started lining up for me. I was doing a bit more meditation and all of that. So it was all really positive, but it was never going to be forever. And then just before Christmas, which my birthday is exactly 1 week before Christmas. So 2019, I started drinking again, and I thought I won't, as we all do, I won't go back to where I was. And within probably 2 or 3 months, I was back to where I was. And then it was 2.5 years of on again, off again, trying. I stayed in alcohol-free Facebook groups. I kept listening to alcohol-free podcasts and stuff like that. And because I knew that at some point I needed to quit, but I wasn't comfortable. Like I was in that real cognitive dissonance for those 2.5 years, because I knew that life was better. And I also knew that there was, I knew by then it was a progressive illness. I knew that I wasn't at rock bottom, but I also didn't want to get to rock bottom. So it was just kind of 2.5 years of blah, to be honest, like living in mediocrity. And then I finally figured that I was living, like I say that I was living the first 10 to 15 days over and over again, which are the worst. Like the first 10 to 15 days when you've gone off alcohol is just crappy. And I just kept reliving it. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, this is insane. And once I realized that, I gave up. And a lot of different things came into my circle at that point. There was a alcohol-free podcast, How I Quit Alcohol, that came into my life, and I did a course through that. I had actually started my yoga teacher training at that point. So that probably was also an influence, I actually believed that I could be an alcoholic yogi, which is interesting now looking back on it. But I was about 3 or 4 months into my yoga teacher training. So there's lots of stuff going on, and I was like, yeah, this is the time, and went ahead and did it. So, and then 4 months after, or 3 months after that, I decided I would go and travel around the world. And now I think I'm about 32, no, not 32 months, 24, yeah, like nearly 2.5 years anyway. So the 17th of April, 2022. So it was actually Easter Sunday. Easter Sunday was the last day that my last day one. So, and then since then, life has gone from strength to strength. So it was like 2.5 years of just mediocrity and not really getting what I wanted, and kind of knowing that I needed to make a change. And then since then, become a yoga teacher. Yoga's become a really big part of my life. I've become breathwork and meditation teacher. I'm really kicking some goals. I'm working towards my ultimate aim of leading retreats in Nepal. So there's just so many, and just really becoming more aligned to my spiritual self and noticing the opportunities for what they are, because it's not clouded by alcohol. It's just a lot more clarity and a lot more seeing those opportunities and going with them, going with the flow, actually not trying to control everything, because I was so trying to be in control when I was in my corporate career and needed to try and put out the fires before they happened. And now I'm just like, okay, well, what's happening next? Just flowing along, which is a much nicer way to live.
I love that. Thanks for sharing. And speaking of, so you're a meditation and yoga teacher, and one of the things that really struck me or interested me is that you just completed a 10-day vipassana meditation retreat. And
yep.
I'm very interested in that because I don't think I could ever do it. I'm very intrigued. And so when you told me about that, I was like, oh, I would love to talk to Jade more about that. So I was wondering if you could tell me about that experience. Like, what made you choose it? Tell us a bit about it, and what was it like?
Okay, so I first heard about this vipassana meditation probably, let's say it was 10 years ago, when I was a yoga student. And it's held in very high regard. So one of the vipassana meditation centers are all around the world, but there is one that's about an hour and a half north of Brisbane. And it's a bit of a rite of passage for serious yogis and yoga teachers in Brisbane. And when I first heard about it, I was like, you're going to do what? 10 days not talking? Like, this sounds insane. And my first immediate thought was, I could never do that. And just had it in the back of my head, and you often hear about people doing it when you're in the yoga circles in Brisbane. So, and it just kind of kept coming up. And I guess, over time with my sober journey and with my yogic journey, it's become less of a holy heck, I couldn't possibly do that, and more of a, oh, that's interesting. So basically what it is it's a style of meditation, vipassana meditation. It's said to have been a direct line from Buddha's teaching into a way to calm the mind and find stillness and find calmness in everyday life. So the requirement is that you do a 10-day course first up. And so you go to this lovely retreat center, very simple, like let's say very simple retreat center. There's no pools or anything like that. It's a very simple retreat center, but it's got everything that you need. And you're not allowed to talk. So you're not allowed to talk to each other, not allowed to communicate with other people. You can't have your phone. So there's no contact with the outside world, which completely freaked me out. So they were my two big things, right? You can't have your phone, you can't talk. And I love a chat. So I was like, how am I going to cope with this? And probably less so the phone. I thought, oh, that'll be nice to kind of get away from the phone. But there's still an anxiety behind that because you still kind of want to know what's happening. And that was something that I had to work through. But I guess the big thing was that I kind of glossed over in the brochure, so to speak. It was 11 hours of meditation every day.
Oh.
Yeah. Wow. So some of that was in groups and some of it was in your own room. But yeah, you were actually in a meditation space for 11 hours, which is a lot. And especially considering that it's simple. Like, it's breath awareness. It's, in 10 days, it's basically just encouraging you to become a lot more aligned or a lot more aware of how your body feels. That's ultimately what Vipassana meditation is, increasing your awareness. Like, when I left, I could feel the follicles of hair in my skull. Like, I could actually feel them because I was so connected. And that's what happens, I suppose, if you spend 11 hours, trying to feel your body.
Wow. That is amazing. 11 hours a day for 10 days straight.
Yes.
And when you arrive, you turn over your phone. So there's no way that you could be like sneaking it.
Oh, look, you probably could if you really wanted to, but you
do that.
You're cheating yourself. It's the same. I guess it's kind of similar to sobriety. Like, if you wanted to go and have a drink, I guess you couldn't, but you'd only be cheating yourself. So look, you probably could, but yeah, you do. You hand over the phone. Yeah, they take the phone. Like, you could say, oh no, I'd left it in my car. But yeah, it was it was really interesting, really calming. Like, when I first gave up alcohol, my heart rate dropped about 10 beats per minute, my resting heart rate, and it dropped another 10 beats per minute when I was in that 10 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And what do you think that was? Like, do you think it was the meditation itself? Do you think it was being away in a retreat space?
I think it was just getting to that state of calm. Like, it's just extreme state of calm. Like, because there's nothing, like, they take all the worry away from you. Like, you get fed, somebody, it's mainly volunteer, it's all volunteer run. So, and it's all donation-based funded, which is just, it's a beautiful it's a beautiful thing in terms of it's actually reasonably difficult to get into. They ask a lot of questions, making sure that you're really dedicated to doing it. So it was a reasonably low dropout rate. It's only a couple of people dropped out of it. But yeah, all you've got to do is meditate, wash yourself, eat, and that's it. Like there's nothing else for you to worry about. So there's probably that, but also just the sense of calmness that comes over you because you are just concentrating on just your breath. That's all you're doing. Like I did some yoga. I did lots of yin yoga because when you're sitting in meditation pose for that long, it becomes a little bit hard on the old hips.
I'm sure. Yeah. So if you decide to do like some moving asanas, is that considered separate from meditation time, or is that grouped into like, is that something you could do in your room, or could you do it in the hall, or how does that work?
Yeah, you could do that in your room and it would still be regarded as meditation time. Yeah. Yeah, you could do that in your room. Like I did some yin yoga in my room and it was regarded as meditation time. So it was probably maybe 6 hours where you're in a group setting, and then at the end of the evening there was like a video where they basically just talked you through the philosophy, a bit about the Buddhist background, and a bit about understanding why you were doing what you were doing. So it was very limited in philosophy, but just enough philosophy for you to understand where you were getting to.
Wow. And how did it change you after the retreat? What differences did you notice in yourself?
My tolerance for drama had probably reduced quite a bit, but my tolerance for drama reduced even more. Because you start to you realize that I became really aware of where my energy was going and how important my energy was. And like the two things that they talk about are awareness and equanimity. And awareness, which I'd already been on the journey of awareness with my alcohol-free life, but I really now notice when I'm going into feeling triggered or upset or anything. So I can pull myself back. I can create space for myself so much quicker than what I could before. You notice really when you're slightly dysregulated, which can be a positive and a negative, but you give yourself so much more space from that perspective. But I also notice that it's very easy to get back into that. Like even though you've spent 10 days, it's still very easy to go straight back into your old habits when you return. When I came home, I had only been home for like a couple of hours and something annoyed me or something happened, and my husband annoyed me and I was kind of getting cranky, and he's just like looking at me and it's like, aren't you supposed to be calm? And I'm like, yeah, actually you're right, I am. Let me go back to where I'm supposed to be, because it was just so easy for you to come out of it. So you still definitely need to work on it, but yeah, the tolerance for drama, listening and being part of drama is just zero now. Like people start talking to me about things that they can't control, or negative people in their lives, and I'm just like, just remove it or do something about it or let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's really simple, but that's how simple life became when I got out of there. That's how simple it was.
Do something about it or let it go. Wow. I'm like, I need to do a Vipassana retreat. This sounds like really powerful stuff.
Yeah, it really was. And I know a lot of people have had some really big insights. And what I noticed, that I didn't have so many insights that I was completely unaware of, but lots of reminders. And I think that was because of all the work that I did as part of my alcohol-free journey. Like I was super aware of anything that triggered me. I actually wrote down a list of anything that triggers me, makes me want to have a drink, which is obviously anything that triggers me and makes me feel upset effectively, right? So I was really quite aware of all the things that came up, but it was really good to be reminded of it. It's like, yeah, okay, that's something that bothers you. And also looking at things, the idea of the mirror. Like if you're upset by something, put a mirror in front of you. It's probably, if you're upset by something in somebody else, put the mirror up. What are you seeing in that behavior that is upsetting you from your own behavior, either your previous self or your current self? And yeah, so I found it just so well aligned to people who are on an alcohol-free journey. Like, I think people who have done lots of work during their alcohol-free journey, they would find it even just going deeper.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my next question. How did the vipassana practice align with your alcohol-free journey?
Yeah. So, it aligned really well. So, awareness. So they talk about awareness and equanimity, and it's not good and it's not bad. You're not trying to, so awareness, being aware of everything that is happening to you, being aware of your body, being aware of how things are affecting you and all of that, which was very much aligned to my triggers. And then equanimity. You're not trying to, let me get this right. You're not trying to escape anything and you're not craving anything. So you're sitting in, so this is how it works. So you're sitting in meditation, you've been sitting there for 40 minutes and your hips are like, please, for the love of God, please let me get out of here. And they're teaching you that it's impermanent. It's going to change. Like that will change. It won't still be there in a minute or 2 minutes. So concentrate on it and just see the ebb and the flow of the pain, and then it kind of disappears. It actually got to the point that it was actually disappearing. You could feel it disappearing. So, but you weren't allowed to want the feeling to disappear. Okay. So you weren't craving for it to stop. And you weren't trying to avoid it. So you weren't trying to avoid it, and you weren't craving the peace or the nice feeling. So it was actually a physical representation of being really content with where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really hard for us to understand, I think. And it gave you a really tangible experience of, I'm sitting here and it is what it is. It will change and I'm happy with what it is. I don't want it to stop. I don't want any pain to stop. I'm not trying to seek a perfect life, but I'm also not trying to get this to go away. And actually sitting there and noticing it and noticing that feeling dissipate was amazing. So it gave me a physical representation of what equanimity is. So now when I'm, wanting things to get things quicker or craving something to happen, like, in your business or whatever, you really want to get a sale or something like that. It's just like, it is what it is. If it's meant to be, it will be. Mm. And it's just so hard to actually really embody that, and very impossible for me when I was using alcohol to numb I was using alcohol, which I think we all are to a certain extent, to numb my feelings. So I wasn't actually feeling them. Like, I wasn't actually sitting there and feeling them, because as soon as anything good, bad, indifferent happened, I'd grab a glass of wine. Mm. When I was happy, I'd grab a glass of wine. When I was upset, I'd grab a glass of wine. When I was grieving, I'd grab a glass of wine. And now you sit in that feeling. But in Vipassana, it's that physically sitting in that feeling and knowing that it changes, knowing it's not permanent.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Wow. You're really inspiring me. And you mentioned
do it.
So you also mentioned that it helped you foster self-compassion. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. So for me, a big part of my journey was going from all or nothing thinking into self-compassion. So, and when I think about those 2.5 years where I was going in and out of sobriety, that was basically, I have a drink, stuff it, all or nothing. I've had one drink, stuff it, I'll just keep drinking for 3 weeks. And I learned that if you have one drink, if you have one sip of a drink, just forgive yourself. Just forgive yourself and just don't have another one. And it seems simple, but it's actually really difficult to do, because, we are in a society where it is all or nothing. So to actually have that compassion for yourself, going, it's okay, I did stuff up a little bit or whatever, it doesn't matter. And once you can actually get past that, for me, it was just a huge change in the way that I approached recovery. Mm-hmm. And in Vipassana, it was just, I guess you come to the point where you realize that happiness is within you. Like, and we know it, we talk about it, we say it in yoga all the time, happiness is within you, happiness is within you, but it really is. So be compassionate to yourself. Know yourself well enough to have a bit of a laugh about, your behavior and what you do, but then just be compassionate with yourself. You're on a journey. You're not going to be perfect. Yeah. It's not going to work out perfectly every single time, and just take that place of allowing yourself the space to mess up. Like, don't look at it as a failure, as being such a big deal. It's just something, it's just part of your journey. And for me, that's something that I really try so hard when people come to me and ask for my guidance or mentorship in becoming alcohol free. There's that self-compassion, really saying, and it's hard because a lot of people who are drinking heavily don't necessarily love themselves, and probably may not have loved themselves for a very long time. And when you continue to break the promises that you make to yourself, that becomes worse and worse. So, in Vipassana, it was just that great realization that it is from within. So love who you are right now. Like, there's a poem that I read in yoga classes sometimes. Not the goddess or the saint that you wish you would be. Love who you are right now. Be compassionate to where you are on your journey. It's all beautiful. And that really came through in that part of that meditation, in that just being able to sit there and actually not control, it's not the right word, allow the feelings to come over me, and but know that they were going to change, and actually feel there is no pain right now. There might be in a couple of seconds, but right now there isn't. That was just ultimate self-love. Like, wow, that's what you can do when you have become so at one with your experiences and the feelings and the sensations in your body.
That's so inspiring. It's amazing.
I highly I do, like, there are there's courses all around the world. If you Google Vipassana, I'm sure there would be some in.
There is one.
There is,
yeah. Because I've heard of people going on it, people I know. I was going to do a silent retreat actually last week, and my hesitation in me doing something like that is that I would have to book off all my online commitments, which feels really hard for me. All the podcasts, all the calls, that feels difficult because I feel like I'm already booking out so much when I am hosting a teacher training or whatever. So that's my block on that. But you're very convincing with your takeaways from it, I have to say.
Tomorrow, book it out for 6 months and then just work around it. Like, it's definitely, like, from what I know about you, Alex, you would get so much out of it. Like, it really is a beautiful space to be held in. And you hold that space for other people. It'd be lovely for you to be held in it.
Yeah. Okay, I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about your trekking retreat to Everest Base Camp. First of all, what made you want to do that? Is that something that maybe you can tell us about your experience in Nepal?
Yep, absolutely. So 9 years ago, I think it was, I think it's coming up to 10 years ago, I went and trekked Everest Base Camp, and my Sherpa, my trekking guide, he is now my husband. So I had a very good Sherpa. I liked him so much that I brought him home, married him. And ever since then, and I wasn't a yoga teacher at the time, but ever since then, it's been an idea in the back of my head that I want to run trekking retreats to Nepal, because it was the most spiritual, like, I talk about Vipassana, like Vipassana's got nothing on trekking the Himalayas. Like, it's amazingly spiritual. And you've got nothing to worry about. Again, you've got nothing to worry about. You just got to put one foot in front of the other and get to the next place, looking at beautiful mountain vistas around you, beautiful clean air. It's just amazing. So I loved it. And I actually thought so much of my experience there, and I was just so impressed with how happy everybody was. Like, these people had very little and they were so damn happy. And I was working in HR in Australia, and I'm like, some of these people who are earning 300 grand, who are driving their Prados to high-rise buildings in the CBD, these guys could really learn a bit of this happiness, because they're cranky and they feel really hard done by. And I actually ended up writing a book about that, not about that in particular, but how the lessons from my Sherpa can help guide people to greater workplace engagement. And so, yeah, it's a combination of, now I'm a yoga teacher, breathwork, and meditation teacher, and I'm taking a group over to Everest Base Camp and Gyokyo Lakes. So that's a lake region in altitude over in the Himalayas, and we are going over there in August. And I'm just so excited to be taking a group over there. So my husband, who's obviously a experienced guide, myself, we've got a medic on the trip as well, and we're all going to trek over there. And we've got 2 spaces left. So we've got 2 spaces left. So if anybody would be interested, I'd definitely love to show you how much what a great experience it is. It's just that feeling at the end of the day when you've been trekking all day and you just get to sit down and sit in front of the fire and just recount what you've done and what you've seen. That contented exhaustion, I call it. So yeah, it's an absolutely beautiful part of the world, and feel so blessed to be able to travel over there and do it. And so it's part of the culmination, I guess, of my alcohol-free journey, and hope to be able to do many more in the future as well.
Beautiful. That's amazing. And so what does it look like? Like, how long is the retreat itself?
So it's 19 days all up. So we fly into Lukla, which is an airport up in the Himalayas, and then we trek through a number of little towns. We stay in guest houses, so it's not, as my mother thought when I went, she thought I was camping. So it's not. It's like guest houses, like really simple guest houses, really good food though. That region has been hosting travellers for a very long time. So you stop every night in friendly accommodation, and then we have a couple of days of acclimatization. So there's a couple of times where we'll stay the same place for 2 nights, just so we can get ourselves acclimatized. We go high, we trek up higher, and then we come back down for that, then sleep down low. There's one night, and I'm super excited about this because I haven't stayed there before, but it's called the Everest View Hotel, and it's a 5-star. I think it's 5-star. I don't know. Anyway, it's the best hotel you're going to get in the Himalayas. Let's put it that way. And we're going to wake up with this beautiful view of Everest. So one of the girls who's coming on the trek, it's actually her birthday that day. So we're going to be doing that, and we go up to Everest Base Camp. We don't spend the night at base camp as such, because that's it's not in season. So it's only really between April and May. There's actually people staying at Everest Base Camp. That's the summiting season, but we're going in November. And then after we leave base camp, then we trek back down through a different route where we go down through the lakes area, which I haven't actually been to yet, but I've seen the photos and it looks absolutely spectacular. So it's 19 days all up, including 3 days in Kathmandu, just having a look around Kathmandu as well. So I think it's 15 days trekking. You only trek, I think the maximum we trek is 12 or 13 kilometres. But it's, as the Sherpas say, it's a little bit up and a little bit down. So it's not like just your average, 12K walk. It's an up and down walk. But as long as you have a reasonable level of fitness, you can definitely do it. The only people who I would say not to do would be people who have knee issues, because there's a lot of steps.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. So would someone who does this, what are the dates for this? It's
the first date is the 23rd of November.
Okay, so it's in November.
23rd. Yep.
So would that be enough time? Like if someone were to sign up, listen to this podcast, and what would you recommend? Like, should they be regularly walking, going to the gym? Like, what sort of preparation would be appropriate?
Yeah, so it's walking. I have put together it's a 12-week training package. It's a lot of steps. So stair climbing, but I did it, and fair enough, I was a couple of years earlier, younger than what I am now, but so I'm 40. So maybe I think I was about 38 when I did it, and I didn't do any training for it. And I was reasonably fit, but I didn't actually train for it as such. So I would suggest if you are doing an hour walk at the moment with a few hills in it, you could definitely train yourself up for it.
Okay.
Absolutely. So it doesn't require extreme fitness, but you do need to be willing to, put a few stairs into the legs. And I think it's like anything. Like, I think if you were able to walk, an hour every day, and if someone said to you, go and walk for 4 hours straight, and you'd be able to do it, you could do it. But it's whether you want to really enjoy it. The more training you do, the more you're going to enjoy it. And that's what I've said to the group so far. It's like, just put in a little bit of extra effort. You'll enjoy it a little bit, you'll enjoy it a little bit more. But everything over there is slow. So if you think you're not fast enough, that's got nothing to do with it. It's just the slower you go, the better off you're going to be, because the Sherpas, they're stopping regularly, and you can't go any faster than the Sherpas because they're the ones who organise our accommodation. So, so there's lots of stops, lots of tea breaks. That was probably the biggest thing that I had to get over when I did it, because I wanted to get there. I wanted to get there because everything was always a rush, and that's what I did. And Govinda, who's now my husband, he was like, we're just staying here. Like, we're just going to have a cup of tea. And even now, he's always a big fan of his cup of teas, cup of coffees when we go on a road trip. So we stop, we admire the view, have a little rest, have some water, because there's no point rushing, because you're just going to get to the accommodation. You're much better to just experience it as you go past. Stop and have a Snickers along the way with the water rushing down beside you, beautiful river beside you, and looking up at the mountains and really appreciating it. But yeah, there's definitely, you need a certain level of fitness, absolutely, but you probably don't need as much as what most people would think you need.
Wow. This has been an amazing podcast episode, because I actually didn't think I would be so interested in these two things, like vipassana and an Everest trek. These would not be my normal things, but now I'm like, maybe I should come.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you should book at 19 days as well.
Yeah.
On the base camp trip, you can access Wi-Fi. Although, I think part of it is around trying to reduce a little bit of your contact with the outside world as well. But you can, like, I sent messages on Facebook the whole way out. I think that was what surprised my mother the most. She was just like, what are you doing? I thought you were going to be, I think she thought I was going to be hanging off the edge of a mountain. And I'm there with beautiful photos in a nice guest house.
Oh, that's amazing. Amazing. Well, I have one more question for you, Jade. I was just wondering if you have any wisdom or advice to someone who is just about to start their alcohol-free journey or curious about starting. What would it be?
It would be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Don't, if you drink, just use it as a lesson. It's just there's a lesson in there. What's the lesson? And it could be that when your boss says something to you, you want to drink. It might be when you're hungry, you want to drink. It might be, it could be anything, but there's a lesson in there. Look for what it was that triggered you to drink, and then get back on it. Get back on the journey, because life is definitely so much better. If you've got to the point where you know that your life is going to be better without alcohol, or you feel that you have a problem, you're going to get there. You're going to get there, and don't, just keep being really patient and kind with yourself.
Mm.
And practice yoga. I'm assuming everybody who's on here is listening to this podcast probably practice yoga anyway. But that was something that, even though I was a yoga teacher and regularly practicing yoga, it was a realization for me that how strong I felt in my sobriety was directly linked to how well I was, or how often I was practicing yoga. And once I figured that out, because that's what calmed me down, right? So my nervous system was more regulated when I was practicing yoga. So I was less likely to want to jump to alcohol to numb the feelings. So yeah, and it was a realization, like that was difficult for me to figure out. Well, not difficult, but just didn't come to my mind. And once I got that connection, I was just like, oh, right, maybe we can replace, and not replace as in I never practiced yoga in the afternoon, which was always my trigger point. Was 4 o'clock in the afternoon was when I really wanted a drink. I never actually practiced yoga in the afternoon, but if I'd practiced it in the morning, if I was regularly practicing it, that wine o'clock didn't affect me so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's so insightful. Well, Jade,
did you have a similar experience with yoga, with your alcohol-free journey?
100%, 100%. And I also don't think I realized it. I was just doing yoga because it kept me busy, like I remember just being at the gym on a Friday night or Saturday night. And I don't think I realized, I just knew that it was keeping me busy and it was working. And I don't think I really knew why, but it absolutely, as you say, it helps regulate your nervous system, which when your nervous system is regulated, you're less likely to be triggered to react or to do something that you wish you hadn't, or say something you wish you hadn't, and just kind of helps you come back to the center.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's absolutely gold. And and look, it doesn't have to be yoga. Like, obviously most people listening to this would be yogis, and I would need to convince them, but anything that connects your mind and your body and your breath, could be karate, anything like that, anything where you're concentrating and you're bringing yourself back to your center, like you said.
Absolutely. Well, Jade, thank you so much. It's been so amazing sitting down with you and hearing about how your journey's unfolded. And I think you're a really inspiring person. And I know everyone who listened to this show probably took a lot away from it. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your input in my journey too. Like you were one of the podcasts that I listened to, and yeah, absolutely. It was Sober Yoga Girl. I'm like, what's she all about? She might be interesting. And I've absolutely loved listening to your guests as well. And I've reached out to a few of them, and they're also part of my journey. So I really love what you're doing, bringing the alcohol-free yogis together and hearing all the different stories. So thank you.
Thank you.